And obviously, I put myself on mute after a year of the pandemic. But welcome again to the Journalism AI Festival. I'm Lakshmi, a community coordinator with Journalism AI, and I'm going to be a host for this particular session. Just to do some housekeeping before we actually get to the session, I'm going to share my screen. Okay, and just to start off with, for those of you who are just joining us and who didn't manage to catch the sessions yesterday, this is the Journalism AI Festival, and it's a week-long celebration of the developments at the intersection of journalism and artificial intelligence. So throughout this week, we will be featuring case studies and conversations around AI journalism. So stay tuned to the many sessions we have in store for you. We are the team at Journalism AI, which is a project of Polis, the journalism think tank at the London School of Economics and Political Science, and it is supported by the Google News Initiative. So if you go to our website, journalismai.info, you will get a lot of information about how to get started with AI for your news organization. We have a lot of resources and courses that we published recently. The most recent of it being the AI Journalism Starter Pack. If you haven't managed to get to it yet, you definitely should. It features some of the most pressing questions and answers to what the community has been asking from us about getting started with AI in journalism. And moving on to some housekeeping again, just before we begin with the session, this is how we think you should be enjoying the festival, or our recommendations. First, make sure to ask your questions on the YouTube live chat. We will be monitoring it periodically, and we will be posing these questions to speakers once they're done with their presentations and conversations. And if you haven't already joined our Telegram group, you definitely should. We're almost at 500 members there, and it's a very active community of people who are interested in the intersection of journalism and artificial intelligence. If you plan on sharing our content on social media, make sure to use our hashtag journalismai. And if you want to know what else we have in store for you throughout this week, or even indeed the next session, go to journalismaifestival.com to check out the entire program. And finally, just the last 2 points. One is, if you haven't signed up for our newsletter, make sure to do so, because we'll be having all the updates from Journalism AI up on it, and it's just a great resource overall. And our last most important point on how to enjoy this festival is to be open, be curious, and be kind, because we're all here to learn from each other, and I believe this is the best way to go about doing so. And now, just before I get to the main session, I promise this is going to be the last slide before that. We have one more session coming up after this one called The Pudding Talks AI, which is where journalists from The Pudding, which is a news organization in the United States, will be sharing how they use artificial intelligence and machine learning to tell feature stories that are just as poignant as hard-hitting reportage. And now, as promised, we move on to the session of the day. We have with us the America's Collab Challenges participants, who will be discussing automating the analysis of documents, images, and language, AI in service of investigative journalism. With that, I hand it over to Margot Torres of the Night Lab at Northwestern University, who will be moderating this session.
Thank you so much, Lakshmi. I'm very excited to be moderating this session. As it was introduced, the name of the session is Automating the Analysis of Documents, Images, and Language, Artificial Intelligence at the Service of Investigative Journalism. Today, you are going to hear about the projects that members of 7 newsrooms in Latin America and the US developed during the 2021 Journalism AI Collab Challenges. This Americas group convened under the question, how might we use AI technologies to innovate news gathering and investigative reporting techniques? From May to November, participants from La Nación in Argentina, MuckRock and Bloomberg in the US, DataCrítica in Mexico, AzMina in Brazil, Clip in Colombia and Costa Rica, and Ojo Público in Peru, organized in 3 teams and worked together to explore ways in which artificial intelligence technologies like machine learning, natural language processing, and computer vision can scale automation, and with that, and very important, support the ways in which investigative journalists around the world innovate in their work of holding the powerful accountable, shining light in underreporting issues, and also supporting to find information that is hard to find. To find. um, you are going to hear about the good of working in these collaboration and experimentations, but also of the challenges of working in these projects and the future opportunities that come from being part of these initiatives. As Lakshmi mentioned, I am part of the Night Lab team, along with Jeremy Gilbert, George Jarmoska, and Scott Bradley, and we are the regional partners for the Americas. And before we move forward, let me tell you briefly about the Night Lab. The Night Lab is based at the Medill School of Journalism at Northwestern University in Chicago, Illinois, is where I'm connecting right now. And it is an interdisciplinary lab where journalists, technologists, and designers experiment together. The lab has a long history of collaboration and pursuing innovation in media. It is a space that deeply believes in cooperation across disciplines, journalistic organizations, and geographies. This is why for us has been a very important part, has been so important to be part of this initiative. We are proud to have had the opportunity of facilitating the work of these amazing journalists and organizations that you're going to hear about. For the dynamic of this session, we're going to hear from the three teams, and then we will have time for a conversation to explore more about their experience with the collab and the process of experimenting with artificial intelligence, and we will also answer questions from the audience. So let's start. We are gonna first hear from Team Dawkins, whose work focuses in document analysis. The presenters are Delfina Arambillet. She's an innovation and data journalist working at the data and multimedia team at La Nación in Argentina. And Michael Morisy, co-founder and chief executive of MuckRock, a journalism nonprofit in the US that runs platforms like Document Cloud, FOIA Machine, and others. Delphi, Michael, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Mago, and thanks the Journalism AI team for having us today. So we are going to follow this how it started, how's it going trend to explain our project. When we reunited with my teammates from 4 different organizations about 5 or 6 months ago, we all conclude that we had 2 main problems or needs. Next one, please. In our countries, dealing with data, with public data specifically, equals dealing with PDFs, and especially when we are talking about public spending and contracts data. We find that the most interesting information is not open or structured. It is usually hidden in a large set of documents or unstructured documents. So we have to struggle with documents published in different sources all over the place to fill or to complete one puzzle. But also, as we learn, next one, please. As we learn different AI solutions to help us dig into these documents, we learn that NLP and machine learning solutions are not as powerful as they are in English for other languages. So with all this, how's it going? Today we are thrilled to be presenting Dawkins, a platform that hosts, reads, gives insights, and classifies documents. It will help us investigate in large set of documents, both in English and in Spanish. With Dawkins, you will be able to upload a set of documents, classify them with its topics or types, and also you will be able to recognize the most frequent entities. Next one, please. And the other one. Along the collab, this tool was tested on 10,300 documents from the Argentinian official gazette from 2014 until September this year that contain any information about contracts, tenders, and purchases from the Ministry of Security and its 5 forces. So now, Michael, the floor is yours.
So get back and sort of
Sorry, Michael, we're having some issues with your mic.
Oh,
We're hearing like again. Maybe you can try again.
exam?
No.
The testing?
No, not yet. Yeah, we are hearing some, like, we can hear your voice, but it's kind of strange.
Is it coming through this now?
Yeah, now it's
Okay.
perfect.
Great. Okay. Thank you, Delphi. And sorry about that technical difficulty. So kind of taking the feedback and what we are learning through these collaborations and working with La Nación and the other newsrooms, it was great kind of seeing how these technologies work together. Pulling together entities, document classification, and a pipeline to make all of these little steps that go into that work smoothly meant that we had to take a step back from thinking about Dawkins as just one tool, but start thinking about these technologies as a toolkit, a group of solutions that worked well together as well as separately. The first part of that tool was a Dawkins update to our Sidekick tool, which bakes some of these technologies right into Document Cloud itself. While technically Sidekick can do most of what we wanted to do, we found that building a UX was really critical to taking this from being a useful but time-intensive approach to being something that journalists could feel comfortable and empowered to deploy to quickly test their ideas and to tackle large stories on deadline. Right now, Dawkins only has the back-end piece of our document classification tool actually implemented, and that caused major delays in terms of getting feedback and also testing some of the great ideas that our partners had. We hope to bring that approach and that sort of process of kind of classifying documents down from days of kind of testing scripts and validating data to being able to kind of come up with a visual approach that will bring that feedback loop down to minutes so that a reporter can just jump in, start classifying documents, and get a really good sense of sort of what is in a large collection of contracts, for example. The other benefit of baking this tool right into Document Cloud is that we could then support classification across dozens of different file types seamlessly. But one of the other pieces of feedback we got through this process was that also really kind of coming up with better UX and kind of really figuring out not just sort of how well the machine learning works, but how approachable it is and how understandable it is really critical to making it succeed. We also got some great feedback that while some of these technologies were really exciting, certain partners had use cases where they wanted to integrate the Dawkins technology into their existing workflows. So we've kept an open source, a standalone version of the Dawkins document analysis tool, Sidekick. It's available now on GitHub and lets users quickly use a pared down interface and feature set, but one that can work completely offline and allows them to customize or protect highly sensitive data while taking advantage of these fundamental advances. It also was really helpful seeing how our partners used entity extraction in conjunction with these other machine learning tools. Document classification and entity extraction are both very powerful on their own, but when you can seamlessly layer or pick and choose from these tools when you need them, they become much more useful. You might see entity extraction hone in on documents that mention a certain company, for example, and then use document classification to just look at the documents that mention that company that happen to be contracts. So where are we going from here? Three of the big areas that we're really looking into are putting together sort of guides and reporting recipes so that people can kind of take these approaches, see how they're used, and then apply them to their own editorial ideas that they have. Increasing flexibility. One of the things we want to do is continue to make sure that we support whether somebody has a very secure, classified, sensitive set of documents, or somebody just needs to get something up and going. We have tools and an approach that meet their needs, and then continuing to improve the accessibility and the UX of this platform so that it's something that more organizations can take advantage of. You can learn and try these technologies for yourself. They are live and deployed. We have some guides, and a few more guides are actually going live later today at this URL, and we'll have sort of explanations and ways that you can kind of put this technology to work. If you are a journalist or a researcher and you're interested in trying to tackle some of these tools that we kind of give an overview and these approaches we talked about today, we'd love to hear from you, and we have some contact information at that page. So thanks so much. It was really great kind of working through this collaboration and looking forward to the discussion.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Delphi. We are gonna move to the next presentation, that is the project Political Misogynistic Discourse Monitor, and it was centered in discourse analysis. The presenters are Bárbara Libório, a data journalist from an AzMina magazine in Brazil, where she manages projects and brings together journalism and technology, and Fer Aguirre, who is data analyst at DataCrítica in Mexico. Bárbara, Fer, your turn.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much. So, as Michael said, I'm Bárbara Libório, a journalism manager at AzMina, and with my colleague Fernanda Aguirre from DataCrítica, we will present you Political Misogynistic Discourse Monitor, a project that AzMina, DataCrítica, Clip, and Nación have been working in the last 5 months. So, our work starts from a huge problem, the violent experience of being a woman in social media. As politicians, journalists, public figures, women receive a lot of offenses and attacks in social media. And sometimes, as this tweet shows, these misogynist attacks came from other public figures, as male politicians. And these attacks initiate real waves of hate speech, because after the politicians, their supporters and followers start to offend and attack these women, sometimes in a harder way, with offenses like this. So, aware of the escalation of hate speech, particularly against women, our project wants to be able to quickly and assertively monitor when one of these misogynistic attacks is initiated by a male politician. If an AI is able to identify a misogynistic tweet, we can search the politician's tweet's replies, for example, and to identify if his supporters and followers are continuing a wave of attacks initiated by him. We have a preview experience. So last year, AzMina mapped attacks on women candidates for the municipal elections on social media in Brazil. We monitored tweets based on a filter of offensive terms and expressions, but we have to manually analyze them to check if they were really insults or attacks on these women. So it was a huge woman work. We understand that an AI can do this faster and more assertively and with more scalability. But we had a series of challenges, and Fernanda will now explain how we managed to overcome them.
So in order to address these challenges, first we had to understand how that artificial intelligence works. So if we wanted a model to detect misogynistic discourse, the AI had to learn what's hate speech against women by giving it a lot of examples of misogynistic discourse. So the first step on the process was to create a database with hand-labeled tweets pointing out either a tweet is misogynistic or not. And therefore, we brought back methodology of AzMina, but this time adapting it in Spanish as well. In short, we refined the dictionaries and selected usernames from trendy politicians and also from Black, indigenous, and diverse public women figures from Brazil, Argentina, Colombia, and Mexico. Next one, please. Finally, after getting our labeled database, we were able to train the AI. At this point, we made a collaboration with Iván Mesa, which is a researcher from UNAM, a university in Mexico. We trained some language models, which are basically an AI that already knows things about language since they are pre-trained, and our task is to fine-tune that knowledge in order to teach them to identify hate speech against women. Once they learn it, we evaluate them with a score on how good they are classifying it. As we wanted to train a model that were able to detect misogynistic discourse in Portuguese and Spanish, we tested dedicated models in those languages and also a multilingual, which is a type of model that is able to learn this task in many languages. In the evaluation of our model, we got great results in Spanish and good enough in Portuguese. So the next step in the process was to create a web application where users can analyze text or even files as simple as a click. Right now, the web application is restricted to the use of a token since we keep developing this prototype, but eventually we want to make this tool available to other projects that, just like us, are mapping gender violence on social media. Next. So far we have learned a couple of things. One of them is that dictionaries are subject to the context. So every time we want to use them, we need to adapt them to the big picture of that precise moment and location. Another learning is that even for human annotators, it is difficult to agree either something is misogynous or not. So definitely, we shouldn't delegate these important decisions to algorithms. Our next stage is to employ this tool and streamline the detection of misogyny in political discourse in the context of Latin America. The project is open source, so we have all the documentation available in this repository on GitHub. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Bárbara. Thank you, Fer. We are gonna move to our third presentation. I want to invite the audiences who are following, if you have questions for the speakers for these projects, please feel free to start posting them in the chat on YouTube, and we will do our best to answer the questions. Our final and third presentation is Team from Above, which work with satellite imagery. The presenters are Shreya Vyadyanathan, who is a product manager at Bloomberg in the US, and Gibrán Mena, co-founder of the organization DataCrítica in Mexico. Shreya, Gibrán, we are ready for your presentation.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having us. I'm Shreya, and Gibrán and I are going to talk about what our team did in the collab. So we got together with the intention of using artificial intelligence and satellite imagery for investigative journalism. So we had seen satellite images had a lot of information about the state of our planet, but we didn't quite know how to really utilize it for a news story. So our motivation was to create some workflow or a way for people to obtain these images and then spot changes that can become a larger story in their workflow. I think you're on mute, Gibrán.
Oh, sorry. Can you hear me better?
Yes, go for it.
Sorry. So our specific motivation was to investigate what the footprint of man on Earth is, and we were applying AI satellite imagery analysis on the rainforest in the Amazon, and also on a large humid tropical forest in Mexico, which holds 50% of the birds of Mexico.
So why was this compelling to us and interesting to other data journalists? We thought that images are a way that break the barriers that language contains, and something that we've seen in NLP. And the tools and data available in open source realm is increasing every day. So we were very interested in digging into these two aspects, and also really studying the state of our planet and investigating climate change, as it is an emerging topic that is an important beat for journalists worldwide.
What we aimed to do was to demystify using AI on satellite imagery. So what does it mean to train a model, for instance? What does it actually mean? What does it mean to say that we use computer vision algorithms? What does it mean to train a rainforest model? So in the end, we found out that it's all about extracting information invisible to the human eye in the image, in a raster image, learning, pairing that with knowledge that the journalist has on the ground, and then learning the associations inherent to those two layers of information and applying the best associations for each pixel of a new image in order to predict an expected pattern. So an expected pattern would be in order to know if that patch of land is impacted, for instance, by illegal cattle ranching.
So here is our team. I know I'm echoing for myself. Is it okay? So essentially 4 different organizations, 5 journalists or data enthusiasts who were curious about using satellite imagery came together to explore this topic. Over the last 6 months, we've really had, I think, a lot of ups and downs, and formed a bond where we've learned together, and happy to present our findings today. So as Gibrán mentioned, we started off like most stories. We tried to come up with pitches, and you can see here some of the story ideas that we had that really rooted themselves in visual indicators that you can't, spot on ground, but could do at a higher level through images. And the story that we were all focused on became the top contender, which is the ability to detect livestock or cattle in the protected forest regions in the South American countries. And our hope was to spot any indication of illegal cattle ranching and investigate that story further. So in pursuit of that, we had to find data that could help support it. And we began our quest with multiple image providers, trying to identify satellite images and satellite images at the highest definition so that we could do this sophisticated analysis. We can touch on the outcome of how that happened, but essentially that played a part in the technical pipeline and the understanding that we had on what different options are available in the open source environment and what we could choose based on the data that we had.
One of the main takeaways from our work was that when dealing with AI and investigative projects, you need to let the problem lead you. So in the end, we found out that we did not need to detect individual cows on protected areas, as was our first initial project, but it was enough to detect the impact of those illegal cattle ranching on the land. So for that task, we found out that image segmentation, as it is called, it was the best for a project. So we built this prototype, the complete workflow, and you can find it in 2 different guides that we are going to talk about a little bit later. But in the end, it's all about extracting reflectance data that is hidden in a raster image in different layers, and then extracting the label data. So that is where journalists can label something that they know because they have what is called ground truth information, and then merging those 2 data sets and then applying the inherent associations, and then apply those associations to unseen data. And that's what you will find in our guides, the whole process.
So this prototype really became the focus of our last phase of the collaboration. But this was possible through a variety of steps. And one of the main things was really understanding the images that we had and annotating them for visual indicators that were of interest to us. So our team got together for an annotation marathon where we set up the guidelines and criteria that we wanted to annotate the images with. And this is an important step for any machine learning task and a new undertaking for us because we were trying to learn how to do this for satellite imagery. So here you can see our entire team on a Zoom call. And you can also see that we had to come up with ways that we identified like forest region as opposed to like any other part of the landscape where we felt like there was deforestation happening or there were waterways and so on. We'd also like to point out that we learned a lot about the different annotation tools available to in open source tools available, and it really comes down to the preference that a certain team might have. So we chose Groundwork as our tool because it was web-based and it allowed for collaborative annotation. But on the other hand, the important thing we also wanted to share with people is that we faced a lot of challenges, which helped us learn in the last 6 months. So the first thing that I think was the biggest constraint for us, we went out with a huge ambition of saying, okay, let's spot these, cattle within these protected forest region. And if we are able to chase a story about illegal cattle ranching, that'll be, a gold mine. But accessing high quality imagery was really, really hard. And the definition that you need to detect cattle on the ground is really, really different from the definition of images that would be available in, say, the Open Sentinel to satellite images for the public. So 0.3 meters per pixel was something that we were unable to really find in the time and resource constraint that we had. The second thing was image storage and processing is an important consideration. And we ended up using a few images and working with them in terms of the cost that we could accommodate.
the other challenge is just to wrap your head around what is it like to work with geographical data. It's like no other data set available, or maybe you have experience with tabular data, because it has a lot of dimensions, spatial dimensions that are not elsewhere, and also time dimensions either. So in the end, you are working with data cubes. So you have to really put your imagination to work to know where in the cube are you. But that's covered in the guide as well. Once we close the loop for these challenges, we improve the accuracy of the prediction. So what you have in screen is the actual picture of the satellite image on the left, and then a prediction, computer vision rendered picture of the same area, and that's what you want to try and go and tweak and improve. So the first time we did it, it was not really accurate. One thing you need to know is that it's never going to be 100% or even 95% accurate. So you will be always wanting to have knowledge on the ground to double check and verify your findings. And in the end, we also learned that this is always going to be a tool that you need to pair with your traditional, let's say, reporting tools in your toolbox. We have produced this guide that is a technical step-by-step guide, and also a more contextual guide that will lead you through every part of the process. And we hope that you can find it useful and apply it and let us know. All of us are in the blog post and in the technical guide, so you can contact us anytime you want.
And I think we also, again, are still motivated to chase our story ideas, and we'd be happy to hear from other people who have either used this technology or have experience in geospatial data, and really, push this conversation further. And we really thank our entire team for this experimentation that we got to do.
Thank you, Gibrán. Thank you, Shreya. So these are the presentations. To those who are following this conversation live, feel free to add your questions to these teams. And we're going to talk a little bit about this whole experience with the time we have left. And as I was mentioning at the very beginning, and congratulations, everyone. It has been just an honor and a pleasure to follow the work and the development that you have been doing all this time. We the big cover of this project is investigative journalism. And in this course, what you have done is just like the way I see it is a mosaic of the possibilities that artificial intelligence can bring to that. And I would like to ask the teams, and this is for everyone, it's just like, how was the organization that we had in the Americas group, where legacy media, La Nación, Bloomberg, and small new news outlets in Latin America? And I wonder if you can share a little bit, how was the process of finding the similarity, what was similar, what was different in your experience in doing journalism, and how was the process to say, this is what we can work together in this collaboration? Delphi, I see your mic is open.
I was muted with this mic. Well, I can start, no problem. I think that no matter if you are a legacy media or an independent media or a small media or whatever, we all want to do journalism and we all want to investigate. So that's why we could join together and work together and find that if you are a small media or a big one, we have the same needs. We are still learning. Most of us come from Latin America, and Shreya and Michael are in the US, but we have almost the same problems and the same needs. We don't have, as we said in our presentation, we don't have contracts data. We struggle with money, with funds. So yeah, we find that no matter who you are, we share the same problems, and we can work together in tackling with them.
I can add, I think what I really learned was the appetite to go after stories is like common for everyone. And I think the smaller newsrooms really showed me how nimble and effective they can be in chasing a particular like investigation. And the other part that's really unique about investigative journalism is that it can't really be done at scale. And the AI techniques that even is available in academia is maybe too custom for a particular story use case. And the third thing is, if you go to like an institutionalized technical tool, then that's not really something that you can apply directly on a particular story. So it really requires you to think out of the box, but also rely on your, I guess, ingenuity and like you really tap into your critical thinking skills and see how technology can help you and not be like a complete solution on its own.
Thank you. Bárbara, Ferdi, is there anything you want to add, or anyone else?
No, I think it's the same. I think we have the same challenges because if we are a small newsroom or a big newsrooms, if you are covering human rights or environment or justice in some way, and I really believe that in some way all of us are doing this, these tools that we have been working in the last months can help you. So I think we have the same challenge, and I think it's all.
Yeah. Thank you. In one of our last monthly sessions, it was say something that really stuck with me, and it was just like how we it is important to be in these experimentations, even if it fails, because it prepares us to what is coming next. And this was said by Mommy. If you remember, we were talking about innovation and where is these projects leading us. So I do want to ask you, like, now that you have done it, how is this process of like trying these technologies and also hearing from what the other teams are doing? How do you think that's going to challenge and change your work in the future?
Yes, so I can speak to that. I think it connects nicely with the last question. I think for us in the satellite imagery team, there was always the talk about resources available. So resources to pay for high resolution images, resources for storage, resources for this and that, and that was our first take at the solution of the problems was to get some of these resources to pay for stuff that we needed. But in the end, we found out that for the problem that was moving us forward, for the investigative problem, there was not really the need to have the highest image resolution and the highest cloud computing RAM available. So I think for us, one of the takeaways is to always conduct the work that you do with technology and let that be led by the problem itself, to stop at every step and think, if you failed the first one to count cows, but what you were really to do was not really to count cows, because that might be an academic problem, how to count cows from the sky, right? But for us, the real problem was, how do we enhance our capabilities to see the effects of ranching on the land? And we didn't need to count cows for that.
Well, in the case of the political misogynistic discourse, as we mentioned, this is like the acceleration of our previous work from AzMina. So now this tool, we will manage in a better way large volume of data, which previously tend to be analyzed by human. And now with this tool, we will keep like all the human accountability, but for sure this will help us to make it faster and with more data.
Right. I'm going to start adding questions that are coming from the chat. Michael, did you want to add something?
Just what you mentioned that Momi said earlier. I think one of the things that I really took away was like both, and I think other folks have kind of referenced this, but the technology is great, and I think like learning how to use the technology and finding opportunities for it. But I think also like building the skills around collaborating, building the I think that's been one of the big takeaways, is kind of, you know, coming in with a lot of ideas and then realizing, okay, this is a process of give and take, and what can we do to yeah, I think just like building those I don't know, soft skills as they call them, but it's really hard work in terms of figuring out how you do these kinds of collaborations. I think that was just such an amazing learning experience.
Yeah, I think this connects very nicely with one of the questions that we have from the audience. And Tyler Dux asks, for small, medium newsrooms, how do you convince newsroom leadership to allow the time and resources for the pursuit of AI, ML related projects? Those who are here, how does the newsroom leadership can be convinced of being part, dedicating time and resources? How was your experience?
Well, I think I can say something because, for example, so in AzMina, we are mapping this violence against women on social media since last year. And for example, this week, we published a report about the violence against journalists, women journalists in social media. And we manually analyzed 8,000 of tweets. So a lot of tweets, a lot of days just reading and tagging the tweets. So if it's misogynist or if it's not misogynist, if I can say that with an AI, I can do this faster, really faster, and more assertively, and publish more reports and spend my time talking to the people and making interviews and something like this. I think it's a big thing to the team, you know, because I can spend my time with another things, and it's huge for the outlet. So I think you can try this.
Well, we are such a small newsroom that there hasn't. We didn't need to convince anyone because all of us were convinced already. But I would say if you're, and also DataCrítica is a tech, one of its arms is really tech driven. So it was really exciting for us to go into the collab. But I would say if you need to convince someone, you need to have track of the actual advantages of using this AI in your actual investigative project, right? So you need to probably a little bit sometimes turn off your excitement about innovation or maybe technology and think about the solutions that might be behind that and really give thought to that and then go to the leadership of the organization.
Right. Thank you. We have a question from above about satellite imagery. I'm going to add it. Say you wanted to apply your process to a different industry, for example, a type of environmentally damaging cultivation. Will this be easier to do a second time? From Aaron Brazil.
First of all, hey, Aaron. Nice to see that you're here and watching. The answer, I would say, is yes, absolutely. I think short answer is yes. The long answer is not exactly the way that we did it. So the time we spent to really upskill and then like set up the prototype was, I think, what we invested in. Now the second time around, I think we have a much better handle on acquiring the images and then also the different techniques that we could apply on top of it. So we think it would be easier to apply to a different industry if we are able to choose like the visual indicators in a similar manner. But I think it would also require us to do like, again, on the ground reporting and really support it to like write that story. Gibrán, what do you think?
Yes, I agree totally with you. And then also we found out that sometimes you don't need to label data, which is a very labor intensive. Sometimes you can leave a what is called an unsupervised algorithm to take charge of the classification or the segmentation of the areas. So it might be a lot faster for you depending on the problem that it was for us. But it depends. But totally, you can do it with the guide.
I think we are over time, right, Lakshmi?
Yeah. Yes, we are a little over time, but if you want, we can have one more question. Any advice for people who would like to use these kind of tools to tell stories but don't have the technical skills? I guess somebody from the small newsrooms can probably talk about how they develop their skills. It's more difficult for you.
Yeah, I think the collaboration is the key. In political monitoring scores, for example, we do this collaboration with Ivan Mesa, a researcher from a university from Mexico. And it happened because we started to looking for some people who are working with an AI to identify hate speech and I don't know if we are here without with Ivan. So I think the collaboration is the key. Maybe you don't have the technical resource, but maybe someone has, and someone are looking for your techniques and your knowledge. So I think the collaboration is the key.
Great, thank you so much, all of you. That brings us to the end of this session. I just have a small sneak peek to give for the next session before I say goodbye to all of you. And everybody, please don't forget to follow their documents, guides, as well as their GitHub repositories. It'll be up online soon if it's not online already. Thank you all. And up next, we have this session from The Pudding, which is going to be at 4:15 p.m. UK time. The Pudding will talk about AI and machine learning and how they use it to tell feature stories that are just as poignant as investigative reporting. So don't miss out on that session. It's going to be great. Thank you all, and see you soon.